Welcome to the Oso Spurs podcast, where tonight we've got a full house. We've got with us Stu. How are you, mate?
All good, thanks. Evening all.
Good to see you. Deej, how are you?
Doing good.
Si, how are you, sir?
Yeah, all good, mate, all good.
And Johnny, how's Dublin?
Dublin is wet, but it's still jolly and sunny in my heart with Ange. How about you,
Good.
Jim? How are you doing, my man?
Doing very well, thanks. Doing very well. Even better after hearing Ange's full interview. I thought that was amazing, and I'm looking forward to discussing and picking that apart today. We've also got to discuss the ticket price rises, the latest on Tapsoba, and also the incoming Solomon, which appears to be imminent in the next 24 hours. So where do you want to start, guys? Do you want to start with Ange's interview as it's hot off the press and there's some really, really interesting quotes in there? Who wants to start? What are your thoughts? Is this a breath of fresh air? It certainly felt like it to me.
Okay, I'll hop in.
Oh, go on, Johnny.
Sorry.
Go for it, mate.
I think that for starters, I pretty much did get in the full 29 minutes on the video I watched, and from memory, I don't remember another press conference that was even anywhere near that long. I guess it's his first one and stuff, but like the ones Conte and Mourinho are like around the 10-minute mark usually. There's a lot to talk about, I guess, at the start of a season and everything, and a new manager. But what I really liked about it was, I suppose, his sense of confidence in himself, and he was really upbeat about coming to Spurs. The whole thing that we've been talking about for a while now, but like we want a manager that wants to be at Tottenham. He called the club a massive club on many occasions. He was talking about obviously the priorities and what he sees as kind of the most crucial tasks that he has. It was quite funny because I think there was third question when Harry Kane came up and he made a little joke about it. There'd be a bit of a bet about between the staff about how long it would take, and Ange said, he thought it would take 6 questions because he reckoned he was a bit more important than obviously was actually felt he was. But I thought that he wasn't getting too sidetracked. He wasn't getting too bogged down in the whole Kane saga or anything like that. He was very much talking about what his aims were to establish the fundamentals. The opportunity was only there when you come in. It's like any job when you go in at the beginning, you've only got one chance to make your first impression. And I think that he was very steadfast in his own confidence about what he wanted to do, and everything was very, very positive language he was using, and not getting bogged down in the detail. I kept talking about dealing with certainties, the things that he could control, not wasting energy and time on things that could cause a distraction that he couldn't affect as fully as he could with other issues. So I just really liked I guess it's what we expect from what we've seen before already. But the last thing I thought that towards the end, when he was talking about, someone asked him, what would a successful 23-24 campaign be? And I really liked his answer to that. He said, well, the fans will tell me. And there was that was sort of a strand that went through quite a lot of his responses to the questions, very much about that connection and that appreciation and respect for the fans, and very much you get the feeling that he does appreciate something about the history of the club. He was talking about that when he was talking about the style of play that he's synonymous with, and recognizing that that's the kind of match with our tradition and stuff. So there was a lot of like synergy, I thought, between his way of looking at things and his recognizing what we as Spurs supporters are looking for too. So I thought it was a really impressive, to be honest.
And do we think it kind of felt like as well, we might actually have a personality at Spurs who's going to be bigger than the whole Kane saga? To me, that helps suppress all the noise, having someone he was so professional in the way he kind of brushed it to one side. And Johnny, you mentioned there that key quote he had about like not getting distracted by things outside of your control. And I feel that was basically saying like things like that, directly referring to Harry Kane's situation. Let's not even focus on that. I didn't want to discuss it. And that gentle dig at that journalist at the start to kind of say, oh, third question you already asked, is kind of like, you got away with it this time, but in future, I'm not going to be discussing it. That was I'm being overly looking into it, so I felt. But what did you guys think? Anything else that you particularly picked up from that?
I thought I thought he just seemed in total control of the conversation. I don't think there was any point during the interview where he looked flustered. He didn't look like there wasn't a point where he didn't look like he had didn't have an answer. And coming back to the Kane thing, I think he played that with a lovely straight bat to bring the cricket into it. He's because he played it dead straight down the middle about like, listen, there isn't a side in the world that doesn't want Harry Kane, right? There isn't a world class player like that. There isn't a side in the world that doesn't want to keep him. But let's be really clear, no one's bigger than the club. And he was very clear about that. And it's about the building of the team. It's about the ethos that he has around the club, about building the way that he wants to do things. He was very clear that this is about setting things up the way that he wants to do things, right? And and again, I think he was just totally honest. He said, you don't usually get called in to do a new job if there's not some level of rebuild required. So there is a level of rebuild required here, whether that's, and I think he sort of alluded to the fact, whether that's personnel or whether it's playing style, it's probably a bit of both. But he was very clear about what he's here to do, and that actually his way of doing things is going to be what gets done. And if players don't want to be there for that, okay. He mentioned Tanguy directly in that when he was asked a question, but he said, but that goes for every player. If there's a player that doesn't want to be in this team, I think he will, happily help him out the door, which is fine. And again, it's refreshing to hear that, and refreshing to hear him use the we rather than the club all the time. So he said, we are a big club. We have a job to do. He's not doing the Conte and Mourinho. Listen, I've just come in, mate. I don't know. The club is this, the club's that, the club's that. Distancing themselves from the club straight away. So I thought it was a breath of fresh air. I thought he handled himself perfectly well, and it was a nice balance between being professional and doing the job in the interview, but also being quite relaxed and somewhat informal at times. So
Yeah.
I was very impressed. Now maybe there's a bit of we've got some recency bias because Johnny predicted this all the way through. We should have just signed him, like as Johnny said on the pod previously. But yeah, really impressed, and I'm really excited about the season now. I mean, there's still some concerns around signings and concerns about certain positions, but the way he's talking now, I think, really impressed with that.
Green shoots finally are emerging from the turf at Tottenham Hotspur, and like you said, the Ndombele bit, picking up what you touched on their side, like the other managers before him all had this kind of approach of like, kind of prove to me you want to be here, then show me you're not lazy. Whereas his approach more like, yeah, he's done well. If he wants to be here, he'll continue to do that. If he doesn't, fine, no worries. I felt like it's going to say McCain. It was like, I just don't have time or care about these little isolated player issues. It's a big picture here, and it's much bigger than any of them. So they're privileged to come on the journey with us if they want to do it, and that's up to them. If they don't want to do it, fine. Deej and Stu, what did you guys make of it?
My favorite quote from the press conference was, well, besides the back and forth with with one of the journalists, I think it was the last question, where I don't remember what the journalist said, but Ange said something to the effect of, "You make this job sound pretty miserable." I was pretty excited for it. I thought that I'm happy that we have we've been asking for someone to kind of push back on this narrative that we are just a sinking ship, because every other team in the Big Six and every team outside the Big Six want us to be a sinking ship for whatever reason. So I'm really happy that he is at least posturing to kind of go up against that kind of narrative. But then also when he talked about winning, he talked about it. He mentioned that it wasn't just about winning; it's the manner in which you win. And I think that after Mourinho, Conte, and Nuno, man, if we get a pretty win, I will be over the moon.
That's so true. When was the last time we saw a pretty win, do you think?
Chelsea. Chelsea at home last season, I think maybe, but it was good though.
Yeah, it was good. It wasn't
really good. Was it pretty?
It was good because it was them, but it wasn't pretty.
Yeah.
No, all right. Okay.
We have to think very hard. So let's hope we're having these discussions every other week next season. That we've
Yeah.
had another great win. This feels so good. But Stu, do you want to round it off with your thoughts on the interview?
Yeah, I mean, I've got a huge man crush for him now. I watched the whole 29 and a half minutes, and I was just like, this is my man. I thought a lot of things, he referred to the fact that his style of football fit in with our history. So he's obviously, done a bit of, of homework himself of what club he's coming into. I love the fact that he said, like lots of even our own fan base and obviously all the pundits was like, who's going to come into Spurs? It's a sinking ship. It's in, club in turmoil. And he said that's exactly what attracted him to us.
Yeah,
and I thought,
love it.
Yeah, I was like, just, you're talking, don't even have to take me out for dinner and a movie at this point,
He's already touching him up.
and the whole way, as you said, Si, he was in so total control. And I thought, he was coming across really humble, but there was an underlying steel. How many times did he say, my way? It was very clear. I'm open. I'm excited. I'm listening to everybody else, but it's going to be my way. And that's, again, where you're thinking he's not going to take any crap from anybody, And I love the fact that, as you were saying, Jim, like, some players might not be on board, but all it will do is slow us down. It's not going to derail us. It's not going to stop us getting to the direct, our destination of where we want to get to. And it's all these things. It's like, he's come in, he's got a very clear path, and either you're on board or you're out. And a couple of other things. I thought a little dig he said about when he was coming on board and someone was asking about his style. And he said something along the lines of, I don't have a fixed mold of the way I play. It's not like this is it. And I thought that was a pretty strong dig to the whole Conte and Mourinho way. It's very much, again, someone asked him about, if he's come in blindfolded, whether he's done any research on the players. And he kind of laughed at them saying at this level, nobody comes in blindfolded. But even then, he's still willing this week and next week to give the players a chance. He wants to run his eye over them, and then he'll make his decision. So I just think he's come across in the most professional and prepared manner, with a very clear vision of what he wants to do. And, I can't imagine anyone in the team meeting room listening to this and not getting, caught up on it.
Can I, leading off that, can I just read Conte's final quotes and compare them to Ange's first quotes? Conte's final quotes: the problem is we have shown we are not a team. I see selfish players. I see players that don't want to help each other. They don't play of heart. It's the same every season, no matter who the manager is. They're used to it here. And you go to Ange and he says, I want to bring success to this football club and put it where it deserves to be. There is an enormous challenge here and I love that. That's what attracted me the most about this role. What a great challenge. What a great story to get it right. Like, that's just contrasting, and it's just so refreshing to hear.
Yeah. No, it's
absolutely
lovely.
buzzing for it.
The other thing I would just add is there was the club put out a 15-minute video of him with questions from fans from all around the world, and it was really nice because there was a real huge range of type of supporter profiles. There's like really little kids. There's like international supporters. There was like the old fella from Brisgrove or whatever, and he was like every time in response to their question, he in every single instance, he acknowledged them in a personal way, and he reflected and identified with his own passion for football. And he would say about the guys, one of the fans who got up in the middle of the night from Asia to watch the games. Obviously, he did the same with the Greek games from Australia. And he was talking to when the little kids were asking the questions and how he loves the passion of the supporters and about the future. But it didn't come across as cliched at all. It was like, I just thought there is a certain ability to just resonate, I think, with such a huge range of types of personality in a really sincere way. And I thought it's exactly what yours are saying there, Jim, the contrast between that and somebody with an ego the size of Conte. Is still a man who appreciates the responsibility he has but which he's taking it really, really seriously. But it's like he's totally in tune with why he is sitting in the chair he's sitting in and what he's doing, and it's like that is what a combination I think that is, and to have that confidence, but also to have that like humility, I think is unusual, and I think we're really lucky to have him.
I think we are, and I think just one other thing that I've just had a quick look at my notes, because I did make some notes from it. Funnily enough, you're not the only one, DJ, that can do some research. So I really loved the way that he dealt with the step up questions. Right, yes. So he's like, listen, step up. New challenge. He said, I don't see it as a step up. I see it as a new challenge. I had the same questions when I came to Celtic. I've had the same questions everywhere I've gone. He said, I've coached at a World Cup. I've done this. He said, it's people say in Scotland, you're going to finish first or second. And he said, in Scotland, second is last. He said, it's no good. He said, I'll get the sack for that. He said, so, if you want to have that conversation, then that's fine. And I really like the way he positioned it around the challenge. And he said, the challenge is relative to the competition that you face.
Yeah, I love this. Yeah.
And the way that he framed that around, well, actually, basically the tools that I've got now are better than what I had before. Yes, the competition is different, but it's all relative. And actually, yes, this is a new challenge, but I don't see it as a step up. I really like the way he dealt with it.
Oh, you're so right on that. And like even about the Premier League, like, is this that kind of, there's that kind of arrogance we have as Premier League supporters where it's like, it's the biggest competition, it's the biggest role. And he kind of batted that off as well as like, is it? Like it never he didn't take this job because the Premier League is supposedly the pinnacle. Everything is just relative within its own bubble. And he has the tools here to succeed. They need to succeed. And it's like, it's just so nice to hear these things.
One thing that wound me up at the beginning was like, one of the early questions was some journalist was going on about a poll on Twitter about that he wasn't one of the favorites. And you're thinking, why do you need to bring that kind of crap up? At the first press conference that he's got. And I just love the way he batted that as well. Just like, it doesn't count unless you've gone and polled every single Spurs fan in the world. The ones I've met are happy, so move on.
Yeah. But just remember that the media on the whole don't want us to do well because it's just maths, isn't it? That the top clubs get more airtime and they have more representation in the media. And therefore, Man United, Chelsea, Liverpool, Man City have more people in the media backing their corner. And they don't want little Tottenham Hotspur, now big Tottenham Hotspur, getting the final piece of the jigsaw, coming into their little party and winning some of those trophies. So they're going to do what they can to make it as unstable as they can. Now they're all going to direct the energy at Kane. But it is what it is. Let's just win that pot this year under Ange over the next 2 years and shut them all up. It'll be beautiful. Go on, DJ.
Johnny's been right on everything so far.
Go on, Johnny. You told us to sign this guy 4 months ago, so I'll be good. Johnny, you told me something which is really interesting, and you can elaborate on this. But you said Ange will have a 3-year plan to win the title under Tottenham.
That's what Scotty said whenever he was announced, and I think I said it before. Like he's put a wager with me that we're going to win the league or the Champions League in the next 4 seasons, and can you just imagine? This is a guy. He's won every bet with me so far, so I would be delighted to lose that one. But I haven't taken the bet because I'd be, that's just like, manna from heaven if that was to actually happen. But I mean, why not? Stranger things have happened. Leicester won the bloody league, for God's sake. We've been to the Champions League final. It does. We've got a guy in charge now who is just so different, and it's just exactly what we've been crying out for after last season, after Pochettino's gone, really. So, it's really, really, really looking forward to seeing what's around the corner.
Let's just remember, though, that the first 6 months, we all remind ourselves of the start, and let's not forget it and get too excited. Like, the first 6 months will be tough. Like, these players are so in the habit of sitting back and going in the other direction, and we're going to see ourselves exposed going on these big forward-pressing attacking movements and then, getting caught out as they lump the ball over the top and Dyer's running onto it. Hopefully not him. But, it's going to be a process, and we need to to be patient if we want this material outcome to happen of a trophy.
There was something that Ange said, I can't remember which interview it was in, but he was talking about whether it was maybe in the Japanese league or maybe it was in Australia, but he was talking about when he knew that his players his methods had bedded in, and it was when they went like from 2-0 down to 3-0 down or something in a game, but they persisted in the plan regardless of what the scoreline was. Which sort of sounds counterintuitive, but I think I can sort of in my head I can foresee games where especially if we don't, we obviously have to address the defense and stuff, but there's so many players that we've got that you sort of think, well, there's so much untapped potential. Like Basuma is the most obvious example, I suppose, but there's players we have that we've not seen anything like the best from. We've got Maddison coming in as well. I mean, there's so much to feel really excited about. And yeah, we are. You're right. There are going to be some crap results, but I just think we will. I think he was saying with Celtic. I think he did say it today that when he went to Celtic and they had a bit of a ropey start there, that the fans actually did buy into it because they could see. And I think it'll be the same at Tottenham. I mean, okay, if it happens week after week and we're getting into November, and there's still the results are not reflecting, what the ambition or expectations, maybe it'll be trickier. But I don't think it will be with the players that we've got. I don't see that being a reality.
We've got a terrible start in terms of fixtures as well. So my kind of view is that we'll probably struggle up until even a bit later than that. I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying it will happen, but I wouldn't be surprised if we were sat mid to lower table at Christmas going, oh my gosh, but there's green shoots. We're still quite excited about changing philosophy. And then suddenly after Christmas, this massive upturn in the right direction. And other people have said it's got that vibes of that first Poch season where we went on to the League Cup final. And it really wouldn't surprise me if this guy treated cups differently. And actually we go into those competitions and don't start rotating overly and we try and win them.
I think, referring to that, Richarlison even came out with an interview, in an interview about how he'd wished that we'd focused more on the cups last year. So I think, that's a mentality that even the players were like, we need to be looking for silverware. And going back to what you were saying, Johnny, about the players we haven't seen anything from, Paul shared some in the know in the WhatsApp group that he's made a fuss about Reggie and Ndombele and Spence. So it'd be interesting to see if he sees the way they play fitting his style. So, could be an interesting season.
I really want Spence to succeed here. Yeah. I think there's a great player in there.
And if it does happen and Kane does go this season, I don't think it's likely, but it's certainly possible. Richarlison is definitely a winner. On paper, he's such an Ange character that really aggressive forward who's not scared of pressing. He's able to do a few, smart little moves and turns on the ball when he's up, and he can hold the ball up as well when the wingers run onto it. He could be a really nice fit. I'm not saying he's going to go score 25 goals, but he could at least bring us 10 to 15 goals in a season. And the output increased on our wings as well, and a better defence combined means we've quickly plugged the loss of losing Harry. So
and Son back to form.
And Son back to form,
please, yeah.
I think Son will be rotated a bit by the sounds of things, with his age and everything. But it's about building that legacy now, giving someone else minutes to slowly build into his role over the next 2 seasons. So, yeah. But that's very positive news. We do have some classic Spursy news to kind of discuss. And one of those is Scott Munn. So he served his gardening leave, but he's not allowed to start due to a complication at the Man City end. It seems like these kind of things only happen to us. Does anyone know what's going on there? Do we have any leaked details of when he actually is going to start?
There isn't anything out there at all. I've been looking at it this afternoon. I couldn't find anything in terms of a start date. But there's obviously some clause in his garden leave contract, or in the contract from City, that has either been breached or not been adhered to properly. What that is, difficult to say because those contracts are so complicated, right? But yeah, no, there was nothing. It's just that it'd been delayed. I couldn't find anywhere online where it was saying when it was delayed until. I'd be surprised if it's more than a month, if I'm honest, but you don't know.
So as someone who's in a senior position in kind of the HR, realm of a big company. Does that happen then? If he's broken his gardening leave clause in some way, he would have a delayed start? Is that how things work?
It might be. It might be that he didn't complete something that was part of the ending of the contract. He might have had some particular piece of work to do that wasn't completed or something. I don't know. Those sorts of contracts are very individual, Jim. They're not. He won't be on a generic contract. It'll be very individual to the role that he's doing.
Got you.
So
Do you think,
difficult to say.
That him getting, pictured at that hotel, airport bar with Daniel would have had some kind of impact on it?
Maybe, but it's funny that was done, that was pictured some time ago, and it's just now that it's coming out that he can't join. I mean, maybe they're arguing that because he did that they wouldn't start his garden leave until a month later or something. I don't know. But it's possible. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in these sorts of contracts, anything's possible.
Yeah, interesting. I guess there's not much more on that because we don't know anything more on it.
Not
Just
really.
that the only good thing is Man City wouldn't be making it difficult for us if they weren't in any way concerned about his, knowledge he could bring to us, his ability, or our momentum as a football club.
Yeah.
It kind of stinks a bit of them trying to put some tar on the track just to slow us down a little bit because, they're concerned what he might bring to us.
They've sort of taken him out of the transfer window for a month, haven't they? Maybe not totally out of the window in terms of him having conversations with the club, but maybe actively out of the transfer window for another, 3 or 4 weeks.
Well, that reminds me, director of football, do you think we're still getting one of those guys? That's gone really quiet. I almost forgot about it.
And I'm really upset because the one I want's gone to Juventus.
I did read his profile. He did sound very exciting. Like he was behind Napoli's rise, wasn't he? And their complete turnaround of fortunes. Yeah, but it sounds like he's one of those who wants to stay in Italy as well. It wouldn't surprise me.
Like all the time.
Yes.
I've been enjoying looking at Tonali, loving Newcastle.
I think on that, we take the piss out of these videos of the guy looking miserable, but he does seem a very good player, unfortunately for us.
He is a really good player.
Yeah. Let's see if he likes it on a Wednesday night up there.
In January.
We just sees a load of Geordies walking around half naked thinking, what the fuck is going on up there?
Yeah, bizarre. So on to the next topic then would be the ticket prices, as we're still kind of talking about the structure of the club. So as we understand it, season ticket prices aren't rising, but what they've done is one-off purchases for matchday tickets, if you remember, they've gone up. And just before we kick off on what people think about, there is some context to this, right? Looking at it, they are in line with what Arsenal have done as a football club, comparing to London clubs. And the rises of Fulham and Palace have been significant as well, and kind of in the percentage-wise in line with that. So there is some context there. It's not quite as simple as we're jacking the price up. And there's also the metric that Spurs have the most expensive season tickets in Europe. That's not true. What they've done in those figures is they take the highest ticket in the entire stadium and use that as the measurement for all of them. But Tottenham have an 1882 section, which is a premium. You get all these extra benefits, free food and free drinks that other clubs don't have. And they use that to say we've got more. As an average, we're actually about third in the league, as I understand it. But it's still, I don't want to protect the club too much in that because they are still, it's still a weird thing to do given how poor the last 5 seasons have been. But what are your guys' comments on that?
Yeah, I was going to say that. I mean, obviously being a resident abroad, I can't, say too much. It's not going to affect me. But I just think that it's just another PR own goal by the club that you're finally getting a bit of goodwill after freezing the season tickets, starting the window well, getting a coach on board that everybody loves. And then you do something stupid like this without any announcements, kind of trying to sneak it under the table. I just fear, and again, I'm not justifying it, but I just fear that this isn't a Spurs thing. It's a Premier League problem. And this is the direction we're going. Because I remember years ago going to the US and I wanted to watch a Phoenix basketball game, and a ticket up in the gods cost me $150. And this is the direction we're going. We're going in the direction of US sports, where every single ticket is going to cost you an absolute fortune. And it's just terrible. It's really taking away, the football that we knew as kids, going on, families could go on the terraces and wasn't going to bankrupt your father. And now, with travel, food, and the rest of it took it on board with the ticket prices. I mean, it really is pricing out people who built up the game.
Yeah. Scandal, mate. Scandalous. Absolutely shocking. Yeah, so you make all that PR thing about the season tickets that we've just said. Everybody's like, oh yeah, cost of living crisis, that's great. And then what you do is you then penalise the majority of the people that are going.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's absolutely shocking. I couldn't believe it when I saw it now that some tickets for Category A games are going to be over £100. And
that is crazy.
It's
over
like
£1 a minute.
Have a fucking word with yourself. And all it comes down to is they know that the supply and the demand, that the demand outstrips the supply, so they can do whatever they want. And I couldn't give a monkeys what that lot down the road are doing, what Fulham are doing, what anyone else is doing. I couldn't give a shit about that. I care what they do at our club to our fans, and it's shocking.
Yeah.
And I've defended Levy and the club to here, and I've had the purple and yellows after me down the road. I'm sure they're following me at times. There's balloons following me down the road. But this is the sort of thing. That gets me more onto the fucking Levy outside. What are you doing?
The timing
Just
of it is shocking. Like, you can imagine the revenue impact of, let's say, £1 million, which is fuck all. Like, in this grand scheme of things for the club.
Yeah.
Like, I know it's Donna Cullen who runs the PR side. It's like, what are you smoking? I know it's not just her. I don't want to I hate that when you go on social media, you call out an individual and you don't have any idea who's actually calling the shots behind the scenes, because it's a part of a bigger board decision. But the board as a whole, it's just so.
But
it just shows you
at some point, wouldn't your communications director be going over my dead body on this one?
Yeah.
Especially as in the same week, the election for the fan representative, it was announced, and then reality comes out that, that actually wasn't the bloke who got the most votes. And again, no explanation from the club, no nothing. It's just one PR disaster after another.
Yeah.
It's non-stop. And Scott Munn's just another one of that, though, isn't it? It's like, just tell us, give us a date, give us something. It's always Tottenham. Like, I find like they often actually get criticised for doing things other clubs do as the norm, but they communicate it so badly that they just shoot themselves in the foot constantly. But the ticket price rises, there isn't really any defending, like you say. So we can say it's the norm, other clubs do it and stuff, but we're Tottenham, we're an individual club. We want the club to behave differently. Like we've been, especially it's just the timing of it. I think if we were winning the Champions League back to back, it's like, okay, like you were getting we're watching the best team in the world here, and the demand is so high. Like even then, actually, it's hard to justify, because it's like you're making so much money off Champions League TV revenue. Why are you doing this to us? It just feels like it's one of those. A lot of big corporates are doing it. They use inflation. They use the political things like Brexit. They use everything they can to justify a price rise, when in reality, it's just about improving their bottom line and using an excuse to do so. So.
I think there was other things that went with they did. Obviously, the membership, the One Hotspur membership price went up. About 20%. Right. And then they've also upgraded Newcastle to a Category A. And I don't understand this one, but like Forest is now Category B. Like, where on earth does that come from? I have no clue. But Forest has gone from C to B.
Crazy.
Established Premier League club, haven't they?
Well, like seriously,
European Cup winners.
Yeah,
exactly.
We were interested in their manager, so they go up to B.
Yeah,
like it's
I
pretty.
think whenever I travel up, because I think I undoubtedly benefited from. I've now gone in. This is going to be my second season as a season ticket holder, and I was probably fortunate, even though last season was awful, because of the cost of living crisis, that there were opportunities to renew, or to get the season ticket. And the way that last season ended, there was a fair few people, again, at social media, so you got to take everything with a pinch of salt. But it seemed like quite a lot of people have signed up recently, and quite a few people have, didn't renew because at that point, I guess, end of May, we didn't know who the manager was going to be, and all the whole Ange excitement is, that wasn't part of our kind of a consciousness at that time. But so I don't know. It seems to me that they can get away with it whilst if Ange delivers what we hope he's going to deliver. But at the end of last season, I couldn't make the United game, and it was a Thursday night and everything, but it was still United, and I didn't manage to sell the tickets for that. So the club still gets my money, but the stadium is still like for fans to fill the seats. It still depends on the football, and I just think that there's an optic there. It's like even when you go to the high road and you're on the bus going up to the stadium, you're just really conscious of like your privilege. I think I don't know like what you feel, but like when I'm going up, I think Jesus, I am just bloody so ridiculously lucky that I can actually go here. And even when it was only like a few times a season, I was lucky, but I don't get to go every bloody home league game.
Yeah,
and there's all these kids from the who go at the primary school next door or whatever, who've no chance of getting to see their club. And it's like, there's so many things they should be doing.
yeah, that's
Especially
so
like
true
cup
as
games
well.
or whatever. Give 5,000 tickets to the local kids or whatever for cup matches, or it's relatively, like you were saying, $1 million is not actually very much in the scale of things. There's so many things you could be doing that would be a much better look, and it's
And
it's
for
very
all the shit we
disappointing.
give Liverpool, I think like they're a club that seems to always keep the fans like slightly within the minds of every decision. And when you look at like clubs like them, their prices are always kind of, I know it's the North and it's different, but they always make sure they protect that cop end of supporters who generate that wonderful atmosphere and make them a famous club. And as a result, actually make them more money because they make them a better brand and they bring them more trophies. So we could learn from that for sure.
You would have thought that, considering the amount of vitriol in the stadium towards the end of the season, that it was worth more than 1 million to levy to kind of keep fans quiet and keep them on board. But short-sightedness as usual.
I think there's going to be some bigger balloons going around the ground.
Oh yeah,
if that
it makes you wonder about the season ticket prices for next season now. If they're going
to go
virtuous,
up.
yeah,
exactly. Yeah, it's inevitable. It's inevitable. It's a joke, but. We've also got some exciting news on two fronts. So it sounds like the latest news of today is that conversations with Tapsoba are moving forwards. His representatives are in London, and kind of verbal offers on a contract and personal terms are moving in the right direction and look like they should get concluded. But it's obviously down to the fee, where I think we're bidding around 30 to 40 and they're asking for 50 to 60. I would just kind of... But there's also links as well, Deej, you were mentioning that it sounds like Leverkusen's other centre-back has a release clause, which is very attainable. So they're nervous about letting him go whilst that centre-back is on a bit of a knife edge in terms of his future as well.
Yeah, Jonathan Tah has been linked away from Leverkusen for about as long as I can remember, but never actually gets that kind of final push to go. I think he's always been kind of a backup option for a lot of clubs. I think West Ham was linked with him recently. But if reporting is to be believed, which obviously no report is 100%, but I've seen it from a couple of different sources, that he has a release clause that expires sometime in the near future. And so that could be a plausible holdup on the Tapsoba deal, because I think that if everything is as like it seems right now, it's that Tottenham just don't want to miss out on Tapsoba if possible. So hopefully that release clause expires without anything happening, and then we can get him in. If the release clause even exists, who knows? But I think that the fact that we haven't signed a center back yet means that we are waiting for Tapsoba. But I do think that we'll probably have a decision one way or the other by the end of this week because we fly off the preseason.
I think Van de Ven's the... Oh, go on, sorry, Stu.
I was going to say, I just hope the reason isn't the money, because if the figures that I've seen are accurate, which is 50 million euros, not even pounds, so we're talking about 45 million quid, that's less than we paid for Romero, who was similar age. So, I'm not usually one of these as, get your wallet out, just pay the money. I'm all for negotiations, etc. But at a certain point, it's not that much money, and it's a young centre back who could be with us for the next 6-7 years. At one point, you just have to say, okay, let's do it. Let's be a big club. Let's bring in who we want to do.
And a good centre-back partnership is worth more to us in terms probably the net across the season than Harry Kane's goals. That's how bad, well, based on last season anyway, like that's how important it is. And it just feels like I've said this a few times, but Maddison was a great signing because we need that creative midfielder. But if it is financially related and we are short on money, I feel like the centre-back should have been a priority over a creative midfielder. Like we've gone through, this will be the third window in a row that we're leaving the centre-back situation a little bit late. And in the two of those last three, we didn't get anyone significant over the line. So I'm just hoping it's not the same.
I just wonder and maybe hope that the Maddison timing against the centre-backs was just opportunistic. It was there. We took it. If we didn't do it then, it wasn't going to happen for 40 mil. You got to do it whenever it pops up in front of you, right? And that there's some other stuff going on in the background around the centre-backs. I think there's a lot of noise. There's probably a lot of conversations going on. I've got to say, I'm just as worried about the fullbacks, if I'm honest. I'm just as worried about what we do at fullback. And because I think that Porro, as much as I really like him as a player, he can't defend. So he's not a right back, right? So where does he fit in? Udogie, again, more of a wing back than a full back, which leaves us, is Ben Davies our first choice left back then?
Yeah, we still got
Sergio.
I don't know.
I think Udogie fits better.
Udogie probably fits better defensively than Porro does, but Porro hasn't got a... So does Porro then
fits better than Porro defensively.
Yeah, so does Porro... So does Porro then become cover for Kulusevski?
Oh,
yeah.
It's a mess at the back.
To your point, Deej, Spence could be a massive opportunity for him, but again, it's we've got some untried stuff. I mean, Emerson's going to be the first choice right back, clearly. But then, I'm still worried, like you say, Jim, getting used to this system. But the way to break the high press is a good ball down the channel or over the top, and that's going to test those fullbacks to the extent early doors. So we might see some sort of what looks like Keystone Cop type defending early doors in the season.
Yeah.
So I am concerned about how we work that fullback scenarios.
Yeah.
I have my inclination based on our personnel is that we'll probably have a rotation of Davies on the left, Porro on the right, Porro or Spence on the right, and then Emerson on the right, Udogie, Reguilon, whoever on the left. So we have at least one of a more defensive wing back at all times. It'll probably be dependent more on opposition. And then if we play like a super low block team, then maybe we play both, but I don't know. We'll have to see.
Sorry to interrupt, we've only got a couple of minutes left and there's some breaking news coming out now. I'm not sure how reliable the sources are, but as we know, Daniel Levy has a very strong relationship with the PSG chairman, Nasser Al Khalifa, and there's been rumours that they might buy a minority stake in us. And Mbappe is going to be leaving possibly this summer, and that's looking more and more likely. So reports are now coming out that Kane is their number one priority, and conversations are already in process with Tottenham, and that they would offer him a 5-year deal, which he is happy with on personal terms, and the fee would be a big step up on Bayern Munich's offers. They want to get it done now before he's free to be because in 6 months, for those who aren't aware, if it's an overseas club, they can offer him a contract for free. So the appeal now is for clubs to make a move in advance before the likes of Real Madrid and Man City can just slap down 600k a week in front of him. So
not a straight swap for Mbappe then. That's not a deal, no.
Fortunately not. No, who wants that guy? He wants Arsenal. Have you seen? He loves Arsenal. No. Yeah, he said if I went to any club in England, it would be Arsenal. So
he's never been there, is he?
Yeah, he's he's overrated anyway.
Yeah, loser.
Just one question you get: what's the latest on that 50 million quid that was supposedly still left to be drawn down?
Well, apparently it won't come out because the accounts are a year behind, but some people are saying it may have already been drawn down, but we won't know until those accounts are out.
Another
find
PR
out.
disaster because you could have made a big thing of that, right?
Yeah, exactly. That would have made it.
I
Exactly.
think that's probably better to not. We don't want people to know we have money.
That's partly true.
It's funny if like to think of Kane taking a 5-year contract though. Like I just don't really see him unless there's some kind of like clause in there. But like he's not going to get Shearer's record if he leaves the Premier League for 5 seasons. That's for sure.
And he's guaranteed not to win the Champions League if he goes to
PSG.
Exactly.
I'd just say, has Kane ever said he wants to beat Shearer's record or mention that? Come on, like you'd be the poster boy of PSG. You're gonna like.
No, you wouldn't.
Do you not? Well, he's gonna any number 9 is a poster boy of a team, in my opinion. Like if you're top,
as soon as he's gone, like who cares about Ibrahimovic at PSG? Nobody.
It depends.
If they win anything.
Exactly. If they win the Champions League, and PSG is going to go into every season as one of the top 3 teams vying for that trophy because they'll just deprioritise the league. I could personally see it happening. I hope it doesn't, but I could see it personally.
But if he's going to go anywhere, I'd prefer he goes there than on a free next summer to Chelsea.
Yeah, exactly. And Levy will be thinking that if they're willing to slap down over 100 million, it seems like. You could understand the club considering it, even though a lot of people say that's mad.
But to avoid any even worse PR disaster, the day they sell him, they'd better announce a replacement and 2 centre-backs.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah,
they better have announced those centre-backs before.
At least one of those centre-backs before, and then him to be sold and sign a centre-back and another really kind of like a 60, 70 million pound exciting player. We need to end there. I know we want to kind of discuss Solomon as well, but just for those aware, he's having his medical. He's had his medical apparently, and he should be announced tomorrow. He's doing all his pictures and stuff. So we've discussed him on the previous episode anyway in detail, but he should be a good squad addition anyway, and provide some rotation options out wide. So Anyway, boys, up the Spurs, and I look forward to speaking to you. Come on, Big Ange.
Come on, Big Ange.
Speak to you all next week.
Go on,
up the Spurs.